All right. So, um, uh, it would have been nice to have had more DMs here, but uh, as is the beauty of trying to get people all in the same place at the same time, it's never going to happen. So we're going to hit this up to YouTube, and people will be able to check it out, and hopefully we'll get a good amount of information out there. Because one of the key things that I know that kind of prompted this discussion is that one, we want to make sure that the people that are DMing realize how much we appreciate the fact that they are DMing, because we have got a lot of people that are starting to join, and we've got a lot of veterans that are dropping out of the DM duties, which means great, we've got more people wanting to learn how to play D&D. Oh crap, who are going to get to run the tables? So like for instance with the charity event that's happening, we just managed to get lucky the fact that not that many people signed up to actually play in the event. um, had we gotten our normal numbers of attendees for an event like that, we probably would have been short 2 DMs, um, which is neither here nor there, but it's something for us to consider. First and foremost, we have also got a lot of new DMs that maybe kind of got thrown into the situation and don't realize exactly what some of our processes, our procedures are, and what some of the benefits that you get for DMing. So we want to make sure everybody's aware of what all of those benefits are so that you are taking full advantage of them. So, um, first and foremost, our procedures are that we act as the dungeon masters. We're players primarily, but we are also facilitators of the game, which means that it is our job to kind of make sure everybody is having fun at the table. Uh, in that aspect, we kind of are the first line of defense in the code of conduct. If somebody is not having fun at the table because so something somebody else is doing, whether it be play style, um, their things that they're saying, anything that is kind of covered under our code of conduct or may not be covered under our code of conduct, it's kind of our job to be that first entry point of dealing with it. For some of us, especially a lot of us that do the virtual weekends, Baldwin Games has got a requirement to use safety tools on every game. So that means that we're using Roll20 X cards, or the red, green, blue card, or red, green, yellow cards. We're forming some type of safety tool that we're making available to the players. That is something that I know Brian has used index cards that are red, yellow, and green to that effect as well. And it might be something that we want to implement here. I have not necessarily heard a lot of problems with things like that, but it's better to maybe consider using it ahead of time than necessarily have a problem pop up and have to respond to it. But that is kind of our job as the DM, to be the facilitator of fun. If something happens, say a player, somebody at the table does something that breaks the code of conduct, your first procedure to do is one, diffuse whatever situation is popping up, and act as kind of the mediator. So, like, if somebody comes in having a bad day, whatever, and goes off on another player, if they can't calm down, it's our job to say, listen, we're taking a break and stepping away from the table. And then in that instance, you as the DM would then find the organizer. And if you can't handle it, or if you just need some backup, the organizer can step in to kind of diffuse the situation. And if we can't diffuse the situation, we might have to tell somebody, listen, you need to take a break. This is crossing a line with our code of conduct, and we don't want it to become a problem. So maybe we just take a break. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's a little bit more intense than is intended, but that is a worst case scenario that has happened so infrequently that it's not really a huge issue, but it's one we like to, at least I like to bring up, because I'd rather you kind of be aware of kind of the steps before it happens than just be kind of caught in that situation. And then suddenly, now what do I do? Um, us as the organizers, we are there to be the mediators for you. If there is a problem with a player, if there's a problem with the table, if anything comes up that is a kind of a conflict, that's what we're there for. That's our job, whether we are DMing at another table, playing, whatever. That is kind of part and parcel for what we need to deal with. And that's when it comes down to, we are the arbitrators of the code of conduct. Does that mean that we are the police state? No, it means that, and I've told this to every admin that has joined in on our organizational team, we aren't the power of the Adventurers League. We're the stewards of the community. We are the closest thing to a D&D civil servant, which the pay scale does seem to, gear towards that as well, because we don't get paid, and that means civil servant. So we get all the responsibility, none of the fun, none of the fame, none of the fortune. But the people that enjoy organizing and facilitating people having fun and playing games, we get a satisfaction out of that. And we must, because we keep doing it. So that is our job, is to act as the facilitators for the various events. Additionally, what we are supposed to be doing is we set up who's going to be DMing at tables. We will then figure out who's going to be DMing at what tiers. We will talk to the DMs. We will work with the DMs and say, we need games at these tiers. Like if we suddenly have like a Thursday night where we have 6 tables and nobody's running tier 1, and we've got 5 or 6 new players joining, we need to address that situation. If we've got every single table running an ongoing campaign and nobody can just sit down and plop in on a game, we need to address that situation. Is it nice to grab a hardcover and then just run a group through it, from start to finish? Yeah, it's really nice to do that. But with the modules kind of going into the back burner because Adventures League isn't producing any, and it's all coming from Order Kingdoms or, well, basically GameholeCon or Baldwin Games, we kind of have to be aware of that, be cognizant of that, and make an effort to run some, have some tables that run one-off modules. To that extent, I'm going to say this so that is on record, on video. If you do not have any modules, you can get them through DM's Guild. If you do not have any modules through DM's Guild and you want some, and you don't necessarily want to drop $5-6 on a module, let me know. I keep a account on DM's Guild of any residuals that I've made off of module sales that are there specifically for the purpose of buying modules. Reason being, I am a full-fledged supporter of the concept of pay for what you get. I'm hardcore anti-piracy, so and to that extent, we need to support that as a whole at all of our events and all of our venues. We support buying the product where you play, because if we do not buy the product where we play, eventually those stores are going to shut down and we won't have a place to play anymore. And we do not in any capacity support, oh yeah, I can find that on a BitTorrent. I've heard that before. And I've told people, if you decide you want to do that, I'm not going to stop you from doing it, because I have no capacity to stop you from doing it. But I can stop you from talking about it at our events, because it is not supported, it is not condoned by this community. And very specifically by the dungeon masters. So piracy is a crime. So to that extent, if you do not have the ability to purchase a module yourself, let me know. We'll purchase it for you. Because we want to make sure that people have the ability to run them. If you hear about a module, if you played a module that is, I don't know, an older CCC module, or it's from a different season or something like that, and you're like, man, I would love to run that module, let me know. I'll pick it up for you. I don't know all the modules out there because there are a metric crap ton of them out there. So to date, I think 2 people have taken me up on that offer. And I've put that offer out starting 5 years ago. So in 5 years, 2 people have taken me up on the offer. So if I'm just put it out there, I don't have a crazy amount of money in there, but I've got some, and I've got enough that I could buy several modules for each DM if I had to. If you can buy your own, that's great, and I do the same. I buy my own as well. And then last but not least, well, I shouldn't say last but not least, there's probably a lot more to discuss, but one of the key elements is that we as dungeon masters, we are the mitigators of the rules. Now, to that extent, Adventures League runs rules as written. Everybody's kind of heard that term, and everybody's kind of got a little bit of an idea of what it means, but it is basically the wording of the rule means something. There's a purpose to it. For instance, Alec had put in about the soul knife, and can the soul knife use its psychic blade for the purposes of an attack of opportunity? And that's where I kind of highlighted the wording that meant the most in the description of that class feature, where it says, while doing an attack action, you can summon a knife. As soon as that attack is done, hit or miss, it disappears, which means no, you cannot use it for an attack of opportunity. And that's when I put out the prevailing advice that is online in the various Reddit forums and whatnot, which is take something that gives you a fighting style and take the thrown weapon fighting style. And then whether or not you're doing it as a thrown weapon or a stabbing weapon, you can draw a dagger as part of your attack. Not attack action, part of your attack. So when you make an attack of opportunity, you can draw the dagger and attack with it. Plus a thrown weapon style, because your psychic daggers have got the thrown weapon property, add +2 to your damage on your thrown psychic daggers. So it's kind of a win-win. But anyways, that is a prime example of rules as written. You just read through the rules, and if there's any question, obviously you can ask. You don't have to know every single rule. You just have to know how to find the rules and how to read the rules. Words within the rules matter. Is basically what it boils down to. The placement of the rules, the phrasing of it, and the exact placement of words is what rules as written means. How does it read out? That's how it works. So in general, like with that soul knife rule, is there an official ruling? Well, no, there's no official ruling because there's none needed. Rules as written states everything that you need to know about that. So that is kind of what we have to do. Now, what that means is at a table, if a question comes up, you make a ruling. And if somebody kind of bucks against it, you just have to say, listen, as the dungeon master, I'm making this call right now. I can look at it after the game is done, and we can discuss it after the game session. But we do not want to have players basically rules lawyering at the tables. It slows down the game, makes it no fun for everybody else, so on and so forth. So that is what our jobs are as DMs. And for the most part, that's just the beginning of what we're responsible for as organizers. As an organizer, we got a lot more stuff we've got to deal with, but this isn't an organizer meeting. This is a DM meeting. Now, what do you get for DMing? If you were unaware of it, and I think we've put the most recent one up on our Discord channel, but we have got the service awards. The service awards kind of change periodically. Basically, anytime a new big hardcover comes out. So the last service awards came out with Spelljammer. How do I know? Because one of the rewards was a +1 pistol. One of the few ways to get a magic pistol. And the service awards document basically states if you run games for this many hours, you generate this much of a service award. If you generate more. If you use safety tools, you generate more. If you're streaming the game, streaming players, if you're playing in a stream, everybody that is on one of our streams for the streaming channel as a player earns service awards. I do not actually gauge how much time I get on service awards because I top out within about the first 2 or 3 weeks because producing a stream, DMing a stream, playing in a stream, all of that generates service awards. So I'm generating like triple time or something like that every time I run a stream on the channel. But the players all generate enough service awards that they get to, spruce up their character here and there, and the DMs earn more. If you DM at a convention, you earn the same amount of time for those service awards. So if you're unaware of those, you should take a look at them. Service awards allow you to level up a character, give them some gold, downtime days, and a magic item. In some cases, you get to choose a magic item, and that's usually about half the items are designated at certain levels, and then the other half of them are ones that you can choose, assuming that they stay with the same formula. We'll see. But that is what Adventures League gives you. That's what basically the admins at AL give you for running, DMing, streaming, whatever. Our venues, most of our venues have gotten behind the concept of thank you gifts, basically little extra perks for the dungeon masters, and that changes. It's different for each venue. Pegasus is the only one that I am unsure of because we're only doing Pegasus once a month, and it's Lance, and he's even removed all the Sundays for the next year because he's figuring 2 tables means that we don't need to play. Apparently, he was unaware that 2 to 3 tables is what we're getting every other weekend day too. So, and I don't know if that's because players just have different things to do on the weekends, but we used to fill up the room with players on our Saturdays, but now we're down to, like I said, 3 tables. So, but regardless of that, Misty Mountain, for instance, every DM earns an amount of credit based on the number of players that are at their table. So each time you run a table, Samara is putting through what our signups are. Well, Samara or Emily. It's been Samara most of the time. I mean, Emily can't even, keep her face inside the window. We just get a little thumbs up now and again. So she's probably playing with the cat. So when Samara submits in the rosters, it'll say random tabaxi jumps into the screen. It'll pop up and say, Juliet was DMing this table. She had, 5 players. And then at that point, what they'll do is they go in, they've got each one of you that have DM'd at all at Misty Mountain Games has an account in their system. The account is based on your name. Most of you, it'll be your first name and last name. Mine is under Zombie Joe, and I worked there. So, but you have an account under your name, and it'll say how much credit you are. If you're ever unsure on how much credit you've got, you can just walk up to the register and say, hey, I DM on Thursdays for Adventures League. Can I check and see how much credit I've got on my account? And they'll tell you how much credit you have on your account. What that means is you DM for Light of Zarsis. By the time you're done DMing Light of Zarsis, you may have earned up enough credit to buy the next hardcover. Or you might have earned up enough credit to buy a campaign case for some, go-to minis or whatever. It helps us to basically give us the tools that we need. And it, again, goes to support the store. And it'll cover anything. Even if you just want to grab a soda, you can just grab a soda and say, hey, can you take it off my account? And they'll, remove the buck off your account. So that is what Misty does at Gamers Library. It's the same idea. We get we get a dollar amount of store credit based on attendance, and then Pickle and Mark were given the option of how to split it up, and they just decided to give it all to the dungeon masters. So, based on the amount of players that are at your table, you get store credit at Gamers Library. Same system. Well, not exactly the same. Probably very similar. I don't know what they use for their accounting software, but you have an account there that's based under your name and I think phone number. And if you give them one of those, they'll look it up and tell you how much credit you have. Brian, what was well, Brian and Ruth, you're both here. What exactly? I'm still confused on how we do it at Noble Knight.
Yeah,
No, we have a punch card.
I can talk to Noble about Noble Knight. So you get a punch card. It looks like this. And basically for every session you DM or host an event is what they've told me. But basically for us, it's DMing. You get a punch, and when you get 5 punches, they give you $10 of in-store credit.
Yep.
It does not expire, so you can, if you DM all the time. Basically, if you bank it and whatnot. Like, what was that, like 5 times 25 weeks? So was that, how many months is that?
25 weeks is basically 6 months.
Yeah, you can pretty much pick up, well, and Noble Knight also discounts their hardcovers, but you can pretty much pick up a hardcover for that. So
yeah,
and that includes like pre-order stuff because it's attached to your email. So if you log in with your email online and order through the website, it'll be sitting in your account there.
Right.
So also a good way to check and see what your total is. Now for that, the way I understand it, you have got to go up every time and get your card punched. Like, I've DM'd for a while and I don't think I've ever gotten my card punched because I've got credit at 3 different stores. I'm one of them is not going to get used at least. So, but anyways, so you definitely have to remember to get the punch card. I've been trying to remind people as we start to, hey, remember to go get your card punched. But yeah, so those are kind of the boons that we generally get. The kind of nebulous boons will be like if we, depending on the type of charity event, I will usually attempt to, like for charity epics especially, we would always, Doc and I would pick up lunch or pick up dinner for the DMs that are going to be there. And it all depends on, we kind of, that's part of the reason why we like to preempt who our DMs are going to be, so that in case there's any dietary restrictions, like for a while, Nell is vegetarian. So when Nell was DMing, we always made sure we had a vegetarian option as far as for the meal that we got. Prior to that, Becky had celiac disease, so we made sure we had to, establish a gluten-free option for her. So in a case like tomorrow, I might order some pizzas. I might do something like that. It all depends on how many people show up and how much we earn. Right now, if everybody was to prepay for their seat based on the prepays I've got for seats so far, with getting trivia tickets, the tickets to the trivia contest and the and reroll tickets that have been pre-bought, we're sitting at about $960 that we've earned. The goal is $1,000. If we get over $1,000 and we're sitting at like $1,100, $1,200, I'm 100% going to be buying dinner for everybody.
Well, we're going to get there because I'm running some killer adventures and they're going to need rerolls to live.
Make sure to let them know that early so we can place the order. But yeah, so that's kind of the nebulous, like, oh, if we're running the charity marathon, I usually bring donuts and coffee, and every time I do, nobody realizes it's there or doesn't want to jump in on the coffee and donuts or whatever. So that kind of stuff is just stuff that we try to do as thank yous to the DMs. And we've discussed other options as well. We are starting to, now that we've got official logos, we're talking about making swag, making some like t-shirts that have the Madison D&D logo on them, or the Border Kingdoms Adventures logo on them. The Tuesday night crew has already started one where we've got an order in to get artwork done for it that has a very sad beholder with a boat and a bottle that says "Beholders have no dinghies," DINGHY. It was said during the course of their Light of Zarsis game, and I'm like, oh, that's merch right there. So we've done stickers, we've done patches, anything that we wind up saving up. If I've got leftover swag from Gamehole Con, it's sitting over here about 2 feet away from me, and it's going to make it out to an event, and I'm going to start giving it away. Just because that's kind of what we do. We try to make sure that the players get taken care of as well as the dungeon masters. So we want to make sure that you all realize how much we appreciate the fact that you've decided to dungeon master, because it is not an easy job. It is not and it can be stressful. We can definitely tell that that DMs will burn out. So, they have, and even organizers have burnt out, which is why we've had to get new organizers from time to time. So we want to make sure you all feel the appreciation that we have for everybody that does this. So with that said, I have spent a lot of time talking about DMing, the rewards and the expectations, and I'm going to then give some options, because I know there are at least 3 or 4 other 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 other organizers here that probably have some insight into what they wanted to have discussed at this meeting. And since we didn't really have a pre-meeting, I'll just go ahead and I'll throw it out. Brian, you have anything else that you wanted to add at all?
Just one thing about any issues that you have at a table as a DM. If you're not comfortable talking about it, or if you're not comfortable talking to the player about it at the time, or you're just not sure, maybe somebody. We actually had this happen when when Ruth and I first started as organizers. We had somebody who showed up with a T-shirt, and it was kind of like, it definitely was not a gray area. But it was pretty much misogynistic. At the time, we didn't talk to that individual that week, but we talked to them the next week. But if you see something like that, we had another player who did something kind of misogynistic, and we don't really like that kind of behavior in general. But if you see something and you're just not sure, feel free to ask any of the organizers, and we will help you. We'll help you figure out if there's actually a code of conduct violation or not. I think that's the only thing I had.
That does bring up the fact that we do actually have, you might not be familiar with the term, but the term is an ombudsman, it's their job basically to deal with interpersonal type conflicts in groups like this. That person is Mark Mapes, who is one of the 2 organizers at Gamers Library. He also plays every Thursday night on my table at Misty Mountain Games. And he is a human relations professional. It's what his job has been for like the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years. So he is the best suited for that type of a position, which is why we made him the ombudsman. So he is kind of that go-to person that knows how to deal with all of those kind of situations. So you can reach him. I keep trying to convince him to change his display name on our server, so it actually matches his name. But he's old and doesn't understand how technology works all the time. But his Discord name is @BIP BIP. One of these days, I'll get him to actually switch it over to Mark so that people know how to reach him. But
I did have one other thing. So Joe had mentioned running modules, and the other thing is like the one shots that are in like Candlekeep Mysteries, Journey from the Radiant through the Radiant Citadel, and the soon to be released, if you don't already have it on DM's Guild, Keys from the Golden Vault. Those are all short enough too. Those are also just as well received if you have access to those already. So
yeah, most of those can be run in 4 hours.
Yeah. That's all I have. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'll go in order since you're all right down the middle there. Ted, anything you think when you need to add from the? If you didn't know, Ted is the organizer for our virtual venue known as Discord. So he is the moderator for the Discord server.
Yep, and I did have some initial stuff about like how do I DM using Roll20, but it might be with. I know there's been some people asking about it, so I might put some more things out. I did have a couple things. I know Joe mentioned like if someone's uncomfortable at the table, do something. Someone includes you, the DM. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, chances are someone else at the table is feeling uncomfortable, but just doesn't feel right saying it. For safety tools, Joe did mention this in passing, but I do highly recommend them, not just from it kind of provides this, a backboard and kind of like it's kind of like a tool to make sure like, hey, if, someone has arachnophobia and suddenly spiders come up, they can throw out the card and we can readjust. But it also gives you a 25% bonus on service awards while using them. And even if you top out on your service awards, I recommend you keep track because you can just keep using service awards for +2 weapons. So you can just kind of go around with all of your +2 darts, throwing them at everyone.
Isn't that ammunition though? Don't you get like 6 in one shot or something? I don't know.
Oh, no. Darts are not. And they are a
thrown.
They are the only
weapon.
ranged thrown weapon.
Nice. All right. Well, Pickle, how about you?
I got 2 things. Now, granted, I don't know if this is a problem at any of the other venues. It has been an issue at Gamers Library where I organized there. I want to talk about pacing. In particular, when you're running a module, I think it's important to try to stay in the framework of our time limits. We had one game recently at Gamers Library that in our 4-hour time limit went 7 hours. And I think it upset the players. And I don't know if the store is upset about it or not, but they do have Gamers Library is not a very big store, so they do have limited space. It's just, if you're running an adventure, especially you have to be careful about like the Red Wizard stuff because they're really designed for like 6-hour adventures, that type of thing. But if you're going over, you need to be able to cut down your adventure. I think that's important. The second thing I just wanted to bring up was we're experiencing a DM turnout problem at Gamers Library. We have tons of players, a lot of really great, excited players. We're trying to recruit DMs from them, but many of them are very new to D&D and they don't have any experience. And we might run into a situation this Sunday where I have to turn away players. Literally, I've had to, it's been very, very, very tight on our DM situation. If you at any of your tables have players who want to DM, Gamers Library has a great benefit program. That $1 per player, it's amazing how much that credit adds up. We are desperate to try to continue to support this venue. I worry about the future of the venue as the same DMs are having to run every week, and I know a lot of these DMs didn't sign up to run every week. They've stepped forward and volunteered, and I would rather have a rotation definitely going on there than the same people having to run every week. But
so
yeah,
the rotation brings up a good point. The more people we get to DM, the more likely we are to do a situation where people are trading off week to week, or I'm going to run for the next like 2 weeks or so, and then you run for a couple weeks. And so players, if you've got a recurring group of players at a table, we used to do this 5 years ago. The entire reason why Meepo became a thing was because when Tales of the Yawning Portal came out, Jay White, who no longer plays with us, and I were both at the same table. I ran Sunless Citadel. He ran Forge of Fury. And so when we switched places, they were having so much fun with Meepo as the NPC I just use my DM rewards to make them a level 3 PC that traveled along with them and continued on. So if we have enough people, we can do a rotation like that. So it's not always the same people DMing. Now, if you enjoy DMing, go nuts. You're gonna earn a lot of credit, and that'll help boost up your thing. The other thing is while playing downtown just off State Street can be an issue, because having worked on campus for 20 years, I can tell you parking is a nightmare.
Parking's not really an issue on Sunday, though.
Parking on Sunday isn't an issue because street parking is free. Most of the time, you can get into a parking ramp for free or next to free. And there's unless it's a sports weekend, you're not going to be encountering any problems. The biggest problem you might encounter is traffic from the farmers market if it's a farmers market weekend. But I think those are on Saturdays. So I don't.
They're on Saturdays anyway.
Market's on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So see, you wouldn't even face that.
Since I've been going to this venue, I have only had parking issues twice out of 20 times that I've been there.
The biggest parking issue I found is when they put a big old dumpster because they're doing some construction, and it's right in a couple of the parking spots in front of the store. Aside from that, generally within a block or two, you get street parking.
Yeah, I've never had to park more than a block away.
Yeah. So definitely rotation, and the fact that in addition to not really having parking issues, there is so much good food and drinks down on State Street.
Yep.
Mark and I have made the every other Sunday the day that we go to Lassie's and get some type of pastry and bubble tea, because
that venue in particular is nice about that, because you can have that break in the middle of your game and everybody gets excited because they can go to some food vendor that's real close and come back with some cool food and do it together, do it as a party.
Yeah, and I suggest you slot your game for about 4.5 hours. Not only does that then give you a little bit of break for everybody to go get food, but the nurse practitioner at my wife's office has told me multiple times that sitting is the new smoking. So she suggests getting up every hour, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work for D&D players. I'll give you 2 hours, and she's like, okay. And so that kind of gives you a break where everybody kind of gets to do the 7th inning stretch and go get some food. All right, Ruth, do you have anything you wanted to add?
It looks like Eric has his hand up. So
I was going to get to Eric. I was going to hit the organizers first.
Yeah, my stuff is still all DM related and stuff, because we aren't quite like Gamers Library at Noble Knight. I can still coerce people into DMing on the weeks when we're short. But I try to rotate who I ask to DM to fill in, just because I don't want to be pulling people in who don't want to too often.
Mm-hmm.
We have one DM that's currently in training now who's still a bit anxious about combat. And I had another guy volunteer to DM who says he's a very experienced home DM. So
that makes
we'll
me
see
nervous.
how that goes. I'm going to have a couple of... I asked Alec if he and Juliet would play at this guy's table.
Yeah.
On the 20th. And then if he has any AL questions, he'll have 2 experienced DMs there. But he's read through all the stuff, so hopefully everything will be good. And then I'll ask them what they think of him afterwards, and if it's good, then I'll probably give him some regular players.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people who want to run campaigns, which is fine, because normally they're kind of contained. The DM shows up and you have like a table of people who are there for that campaign. And most weeks, if that DM is not there, then some of those players won't show up because they're only there for that campaign. But I did have an 8-person table last Monday, and I think that's the start of things getting bigger.
Yep. There is no actual limit to the size of tables. It used to be your a legal table was 3 to 7 players. We kind of use that as a guideline now. We try and stick at around 6 players as a max.
Yeah, it was a role play heavy module, so it got a little unwieldy because there were some people who definitely interacted with the characters more than others and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
at Misty Mountain Games pre-pandemic, we had a DM that apparently just anytime anybody walked by and was looking for a table, it was like, "Oh, sit down, you can play here." And we didn't realize it, but at one point, it was up to around 11 players at the table. And
oh.
we're like, no, no.
I was
No.
like, I think I know that DM. Wait, no, we never got up to 11 at our table.
Yeah.
We were just like bad at math, We just can't count.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
but
right.
there's also a lot of player fluctuation at Noble Knight. And I don't know if this is because it's hard to have the same group of people every time, but like we'll see people who come for 2 months and then they'll stop coming.
We get that at the other venues as well.
Okay.
Some people just start and either it's not for them or they start doing it and they get really into it, but then they're like, coming out to a venue like every week.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of friends at home that want to do it, and they'll try doing a home game, and maybe they come back because they find a home games break down. It's happened to everybody.
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh wait, there's a benefit to having organized play. You suddenly don't have 2 or 3 players show up. Hey, we got people that'll sit down and play with you. So a lot of that, or they just, not everybody's into organized play. Alex Kammer, the director of Game Con, still doesn't understand how it works. Remember the certs, the business card size certs that I was handing out at Game Con last year?
Yeah, I got those.
We got the actual cert we were supposed to get. It is awesome. I'm going to give you all a little sneak peek. It was a Beholder plushie that when you squeeze it, it says it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and you get it from a bar on the Rock of Brawl. He looked at it, he's like, why in the hell would anybody want this thing? It isn't a physical thing, right? I'm like, no, it's a trinket that you put on your character that they got from the first spaceport off of the Forgotten Realms, off of Toril. He's like, why would you want that? I'm like, you just don't. This was the guy I had to spend 3 years convincing to ask Matt Mercer to come to the convention. I don't get why people watch people play D&D for 4 hours. Like, you don't have to. You just have to know there are millions of people that love it. So after he brought him on, he's like, look at this great thing I did. I'm like, go nuts, man. But yeah, I mean, it's some people, they just don't, they try it. It doesn't take, and then they go home and do a home game.
I think too, there's a few people that wanted to be trained as DMs, and they trained as DMs and then left us for other nights, or they didn't come back, or stuff like that.
Or my favorite, I can do this better than the book says. Let me homebrew this. So everybody goes that route at one point.
Yeah.
One of my players that I taught how to play D&D at my home game decided they want to do an all evil campaign, and I was like, oh, that's not illegal. And oh my God, no, I'm not going to play in that game. But anyways, all right, Eric, you've patiently had your virtual hand up.
Thanks. I was only thing I was going to chime in on was for anybody who's intimidated about safety tools, is to think about scripting them out. And the example I'm thinking of, it's not D&D, but Jason Cordova, for those of you who are familiar with him, game designer, does the Gauntlet stuff. He does YouTubes and he shows off his games, and he's always got people that he pulls in from his Discord. So it's all new players all the time. And he just goes through his scripted safety tool, and he uses specific safety tools, but it gives you kind of an example of someone just like, I'm going to go through this. Here's what I'm going to say. And here's the tools we're going to use. And like, it's that way you don't have to like try to like figure out how you're going to talk about your tools at the beginning of each game.
Yeah. So for those of us that work the virtual weekends, most of us have got a script built up for that. That is basically what Eric is talking about. So for mine, I've got a Roll20. I've got There's spell templates in Roll20 that act just like characters. You can drag and drop them out on the thing. I also have cards. The red X card comes out, I drops it out, and it's got a big old 300-foot aura of red, so that there's no way I'm going to miss it. And I've got the script that I do every single time. And the biggest thing that helps with that is, especially if you're running multiple sessions throughout the weekend, as soon as you start getting into it, anybody who's worked customer service, who's worked telephone tech support, who's just worked retail where you have to answer the phone, the script just kind of starts to roll off the tongue, and you just automatically go through it. You can autopilot it at some point, provided you're not a dummy like me when I was younger and worked 2 full-time jobs and you got the scripts mixed up. I was working at Walden Books one time and said, well, thank you for calling CompUSA software line. How can I help you? And they're like, what? And I said, oh, no, you reached CompUSA. Oh, okay, thanks, no problem. Hung up the phone, and then I just stood by the phone, and my manager's like, Joe, just a second, Pat. Phone rings. I pick it up. Thank you for calling Walden Books. How may I help you? Boy, that person was really confused when it was the same voice. But, scripting, it's just autopilot. So, but if anybody wants to get a prime example of that, I suggest jumping in on a virtual weekend. It's $15 to play a 4-hour game. They are all very professional level dungeon masters running very involved online games. If you want to see some of the top people running Roll20, Foundry, there is some fantasy grounds, but there's less and less because there are fewer people asking for fantasy rounds these days. But if these are people that, this is what they do once a month, they do this, or they do it other times. So, and it'll get you a good idea of how each person kind of handles the script a little different. Matt, I see you've got your virtual hand up as well.
So I generally lean more towards virtual games just because of the commute. And so I'm curious, would you, with them still happening, but there being more and more venue games, is that something that you would like us to lean away from and lean more towards the venue games?
No.
Is that something, okay?
No, not at all. We've got, so case in point, Matt's ran a virtual table for our charity marathon. So we had clearly had virtual players that were willing to play. Max is in Arizona. And so, he's running on our stream on Wednesdays, but, before that, he was playing and DMing on virtual games here on the channel or here on the server. We've got a lot of players that are in Chicago area, Georgia, Kentucky. So we when we had the 2-year, 2.5-year, 3-year, however long we're on it, lockdown, because of virtual weekend, Brian, I think Ted invited some folks. I know I invited a couple folks. Anybody, if we enjoyed playing with somebody at a virtual weekend, we're like, hey, if you want to play some more, we've got this server, and our AL group has been playing nonstop since the lockdown happened, and they'll join the server. Sometimes they stick around, sometimes they don't. We've got one player from Germany who lives in Berlin. He never plays because of the time difference, but he's on the server. We've got a player in Milan. I don't know. There's two. There's the Sage Advice guy, and then there's Luca, who's the player. One of them's in Milan, one of them is Verona. Anyways, he can't get out to play in person as much anymore, and he can't make it to GaryCon every 2 years. So he's asking about playing an online game, and he says he doesn't care what the time difference is because he's got a flexible schedule. So we've got folks that are looking for virtual games.
I think one other thing too, especially with Pegasus being whatever status that's in right now, there was one person that had posted recently about just not comfortable doing in person without a mask yet, and I think having the virtual option still is good for those individuals that may be immunocompromised or are nervous about coming to our in-person venues.
Yeah. Well, Greg Wood can't make it out to in-person venues reliably until, because he's undergoing cancer treatment. So once he's done with that, and he kind of gets the all clear, then he can maybe start coming to in-person games again. But until then, he's playing virtually. So we've kind of been able to meet that need for him. So definitely, I think I honestly, I don't see it going away. I see us doing just as many virtual games as we used to. So and definitely the commute is not a small issue, because if you're talking about, even if I used to drive in before, when Nick was still in high school, and before, we lived in Fort Atkinson, and I used to drive in weekly for HeroClix events in on this side of town, Misty Mountain usually. But you get into the winter time, and nobody want to make that kind of commute frequently. So yeah, I can definitely see where people would want to have a lack of commute. Go ahead.
If this is becoming, not becoming, but if this is then a solid thing that definitely isn't going away, are there, just to double check, are there forms that I should be filling out as I run my weekly games? Is there anything that I should be checking it about? I have these players, this many times, kind of a thing. Because if this is a thing for venues, and you have that level of organization for the venues, I asked whether I should be doing that myself, just because there are players and it is a table. Should I not also be doing that?
So, yes and no. One of the key reasons why we do it at venues is the venue offers credit, store credit, kind of a thank you or whatever for running. So that is kind of the main reason we started doing that, or kept doing that. Obviously, some of the veteran DMs remember when we used to have to do these little sheets with DCI numbers, to the extent where I had certain DMs DCI numbers memorized. I had mine, Lance's, Jay's. I had everybody's number memorized. And this is not exactly a small number. It's a 10-digit number. But when that went away, the only reason we kept doing these slips was for the purposes of handing it off to the venue so that they could give thank yous. That said, I'm not against having some more organization to the extent of what Ed and the other admins think we can maintain here on the thing. So that way, if somebody comes in, and because we've had people pop in and say, I'm looking for an online game. And we kind of never really had a way of saying, hey, here's where you can go and find what's currently going on. And, we can put in some type of a request system so that DMs that are capable of running it know that they're there's 5 people that are looking to play Dragonlance. That's a campaign right there. And then can put it together. So that's something we can look at in the future. Eric, another one?
I just wanted to pass the thanks back to the administrators, by the way. You were thanking DMs, but I want to say how much I appreciate all the work you all do. And it's awesome. And I really like that I have found this community and I'm part of it. So thank you.
Excellent. I'm glad you found us, and that you kind of found yourself a new home. I'll be honest, I started this 9 years ago as a way of learning how to play the player side of things, because I was the forever DM with my group that would play on Sundays, and it was a long time group. We started when one of the players was just having kids, and when we ended, his daughter was in high school and started playing with us. So it was a long time group, but we just got to the point where it was basically 2 or 3 of us, and 2 of them were living in this house. It was me and my son, and so I joined this just to play, and then the organizer had paternity leave he wanted to take because his son was being born, and he's like, I just need somebody to cover for about 3 months for paternity leave. And Lance and I said, okay, cool. So that kid is now 9. I've said, okay, are you going to come back as soon as your son is old enough to DM for us? He's got 3 years. Our youngest DM to date has been 12 years old. But anyways, so yeah, we've got, it is the only reason we keep doing it is because it is such a community. I was born and raised here in Madison, and I fully believe that Madison has got some strong communities, whether it be, the Italian Workmen's Club, the gamers communities in here, the music scene, whatever. We tend to get strong, vibrant communities here in Madison, and yeah, D&D is no different. So excellent. All right. Well, we have been sitting here and talking for an hour. I think that is long enough for anybody. And unless anybody else has got anything that they would like to ask, question, or add in, I think that we'll call us done. For those of you that are going to be coming out to help support Percy tomorrow, we will see you tomorrow morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 10 a.m. I've even convinced my wife to come out and help me on the HQ desk. She says it's my birthday present. That tells you how old I am. My birthday present is her coming out to help at a D&D event. But we'll see you tomorrow morning. For the rest of you, we will see you at our next in-person event or online. Remember, if any other questions come up and you've got time during your lunch break from noon-ish to 2, I will generally post into the Discord saying, hey, I'm running office hours, and I'll be streaming some sort of computer game where I'm getting my ass whooped, and you can come in and ask questions in the chat. And I will respond to them right then and there. And if I don't know the answer, I've got this notebook, like a literal notebook with paper in it, right by my desk where I can jot down to look something up. So hit us up anytime for that, or hit us up on the Discord. So thanks for showing up, and we'll see you all later.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Where is the